is exactly probably just
Oh, I'm halfway there. Wow, living on a prayer. Okay, so not well known for the quality of the YouTubes or my singing. Today, we've got a wonderful subject to talk about today of Christianity and what is and what should be. By the way, does anybody know the Led Zeppelin song, What Is and What Should Never Be? Like this shirt that's half unbuttoned, like, oh, this lady's lack of my not just hair. That's how I remain my youth. You know, we're all trying to hold on a little bit of youth. And I'll give you a great example right quick. Here you go. Look at that right there. Yeah.
Who are you talking to, William?
I didn't know I was going to have Joe Cocker on as a guest.
I wish I could sing like him.
Oh no, well, I don't know. I think a controlled disaster is always a definite has its niche in society, and seems to be like people like Joe Cocker and Frank Zappa, you know, or Captain Beefheart. Yeah, I'm pulling out some.
Look at you pulling out like Zappa. You kind of understand a few people knowing who that is, but Captain Beefheart, William, my respect for your musical tastes has. I didn't know it could increase, but it's increased. Captain Beefheart was like, my dad had those albums when I was a teenager. I would be listening to them. So
you remember that song? It's a real good batch. Remember that one?
I can't say I know the song names. So
he talks about, you know, it's a spoof on reality, and how you know, the actual trip that you go into is the reality that you would normally see, and what you see is the actual trip. Like right now, us as sober people, this is the trip. This is the trip. So it's it's an interesting take on life, because I often think, I'm like centered up here. Okay, I often think to myself, you know, we need to understand what we perceive as normal. It is normal, but you know, there are other paradigms out there, and Christianity, it brings us to a place where it sustainable paradigm. Does that make sense? Maybe possibly where things can kind of thrive and grow and be beautiful and unique. Yep.
I'm trying to find. Sorry, I'm trying to find This Way Network so I can send the link to somebody. I got a friend.
Yeah, I see you're a regular viewer of the channel, and I'm glad to hear that. You want me to send you a link? I can send you a link.
Hold on, I got it. I found it. There. Wait, no, where is it?
Oh, well, let me get some of the comment people while you're doing that. I want to read off some of the AC Cruz. By the way, Cruz Rules on Twitter. It's Cruz Rules, and cool, awesome. Chloe, what's going on? And Eureka, what's happening? William pretends to be a diversity hire, but oh, thank you so much, Chloe. I appreciate that. You know, to be honest with you, anytime that I really became hubris and decided, oh, I've got this all figured out, that's when everything came to a crashing disaster. So I try to stay humble, because then everything sort of stays on an uphill. What's up, Mitch? Stays on an uphill trajectory, if
H1 is easier to digest than
hear that?
multivitamin.
Yep.
That's the
at least
ad.
It wasn't something real controversial like
stupid commercial. Hold on, I got to share this link. Got to send it to my friend. Hold on, copy link. He'll be.
You know, we should. I know Doug Tenaple pulls a lot of weight. We should get him to share it if we could. That'd be really neat. And he's what a great man he is. We'll put this on Twitter.
All right. Chloe. I'm putting this up. Yeah,
singing in the rain. Yep. So anyway, so talk to us a little bit. Now you know, your subject is quite deep, and I'm gonna let you take the floor for a little bit here and get us all. Then I'll play off of what you got going on right there. That way we can all kind of come together in this spontaneous world that seems to be, you know, not spontaneous at all. Everything has a plan, right?
Well, I was going to first want to get your take. What your impressions? What is Christian nationalism and what is it not?
Great. Christian nationalism. Well, in the mainstream world, Christian nationalism is a threat to a society that is hell bent on being its own entity and trying to supersede what is actually already perfect. You know, God creates everything perfectly. That everything, like the way that the universe is designed, the earth in itself is designed, the animals on this planet, you and me, even though we're imperfect morally, we we are perfect beings. The way that we were constructed in ourselves, and you can see. So I'm getting off subject. Christian nationality is when you're proud of something. Whenever you are Christian nationalist, when you're proud of something, you're not afraid to express it, and it's just to me, just what it should be, but then like I say, through Marxist inversion, that word gets flipped around, and it's where you're supposedly like forcing this on somebody when it's not the case at all. You're just pretty much pointing out that you can believe what you want. I'm just kind of getting around the narrative what we see now. You can believe what you want, but this is actually what works. And we stand for that. And standing for something is a threat to somebody, because then that means they have to work hard to take you away from it. And that's where we're at.
Good. Well, so we're in an era where there's always an era when somebody's being demonized by the mainstream, right? There's got to be somebody who's the villain, or someone who is the scapegoat, right? When things go awry, when your leaders have so fumbled their responsibilities, they need to find a scapegoat, someone to target. And the latest catchphrase for that villain, or the villainization, is Christian nationalists. And so I'm going to start with what Christian nationalism is not. Christian nationalism is not white supremacy. It is not loyalists to that man from World War II, right? That's not, even though nationalism.
Oh, yeah, we can't use his name. We can't use his name, but it starts with an H and ends with a lur.
It starts with an H and ends with an Hitler.
Sure, you want to dance around it? Yeah, you go right
ahead. Yeah, any guesses? Anyone? Right. So, the notion. And there are good people that have kind of fallen for that narrative, fallen for that false narrative that Christian nationalism is somehow some kind of evil movement that's against democracy, or against America, or is destructive. And, they demonize it by saying those are the people who want to force religion upon you.
Right? I want to just interrupt for 1 second.
You in the front row?
I gotta go bathroom. No, so they use the same thing when it comes to people who support the American flag and American way of life. That the constitutional nationalists, just people. They like to throw that. Go ahead. I'm just anything you stand for. Yeah.
Right. So even some good people, even some Christians, are saying, oh, well, no, we don't want Christian nationalism. We don't want a Christian nation. And it's like they've gotten backed into a corner with bad logic. They've tried to appeal to the mainstream, appeal to the zeitgeist of the moment, of the era, and say, well, we all just want to get along. And by doing so, they back themselves into the corner saying, no, we're not for Christianity in government, right? Separation of church and state. And that's an argument that you hear people, even on even the good guys, right? Even arguably the people who are Christians, and that if Christian nationalists have their way, they'll imprison Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists or atheists, right? It'll become against the law to not believe in Jesus, right? That's the notion. And that is the furthest thing from what Christian nationalism is. And I should know. No, I mean, I've been researching Armenia.
Yep.
Right.
You wrote a book and stuff to go with that too,
Yes.
That's kind of popping off.
My whole life is invested in, since I heard the name Solomon Tehlirian.
So, just to get you off subject for a second, what drives a person to go in that direction? What puts you on that path? Because that's the question I don't think anybody's ever asked you before, and I would love to hear that. Just a quick summary.
Quick summary. I can do a quick summary in about 5 hours. Just kidding.
Okay.
Well, the short version is, as a Christian, I was seeking direction, right? Seeking, what am I supposed to do with my life? I work in Hollywood. Now I have I had a window coming where I was going to lose my job and need to look for another job, which is common. I mean, that's the name of the game in this business. And so I was seeking the Lord for direction. I'm like, what should I do? Should I go find a job for someone else, or is there something else I'm supposed to do? And I fasted. I did a 3-day fast. And within a month of that fast, again, summarizing, I came across the name Soghomon Tehlirian, who assassinated Talat Pasha, the former Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire, and Soghomon was acquitted for doing it. I'm like, this looks like a very important story. The guy who committed genocide against 2 million people was assassinated, and his assassin was acquitted. I'm like, this fact of history just
strange how that one thing would catch your eye. It's weird how, and I call it God placing people in a certain time for that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's like, for such a time. It was like, I come across and it was on Wikipedia, right? It's like, not like it was that buried or that hidden. It was there, but the significance of it, I, as a white man, right, as a American, as a Christian, had never heard any of this, and it's critical. And as I dug into it, the more and more, it's the significance of this story increased. I mean, I understood it more and more, how important it was, and how I had. All right, I'm distracted here by Coconuts Love You. So William Archibald, I'd like to introduce you to another friend of mine. This is an Armenian friend of mine. His name is Ara, and Ara has become a buddy of mine over the last 8, 9, 10 months. I can't remember. And I've introduced him to Bible Every Morning and This Way Network. So you're probably going to see him around a bit.
Sweet.
And here, all right. You asked me how and why this story captured my soul. Let me explain how I met Ara. So I was as I've been researching this, obviously I'm meeting more and more Armenians of influence. And I was invited to a music video release party of this one Armenian friend of mine who's, a semi-famous musician. And he was having a video release party at his studio, and I was there, and I'm the Soghomon Tehlirian guy. And so he's introducing me to people, and I'm standing there with, 3 or 4 or 5 people around me, just telling them what I'm doing. This was 9 or 10 months ago. And this guy across the room comes straight at me and is asking questions, and it joins the little circle. And when it kind of breaks up, he comes straight to me and is hugging me. I mean, immediately. And he's a kindred spirit. I'm like, there's something about this guy. And here's what really sealed the deal. He says, my brother passed away. His older brother passed away. And I took some of his ashes and purchased a spot at Soghomon's monument. So Soghomon has a monument in Fresno. It's like a holy monument. It is a huge monument, and one section of the cemetery is all around him. And there's these people of prominence and importance are getting, Armenian people are getting spots around him. Richard Hovhannissian, the greatest Armenian historian from UCLA, just passed away, and his plot is real close to Soghomon's. So when Ara told me that he found a spot for his brother right there, I knew that this guy understood the importance of Soghomon. What I'm realizing is there's a lot of Armenians that have no idea about this story, and Armenians don't understand the importance of it. But to find an Armenian that knows how important it is, so much so that his own brother's ashes are there at that sacred place, I knew that this is a guy that I could speak shorthand with, and it's borne out. We've been fast buddies.
It's got somebody that's something you can throw off of it, and that's really good. So now I want to steer you back in the direction of Solomon, the story, the importance. and then we'll get back into the what Christian nationalism is and what it isn't. So
How
we'll
it
do
ties
that.
into this. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Thank you, William. So I come across this story, and the first phrase that stuck out to me when I first heard about this was somebody said, I don't know if it's true, but my friends told me that Armenia was the first Christian nation. Right? First Christian nation. In other words, the notion of Christian nationality came into existence in 301 AD when Armenia declared the teachings of Jesus to be their ruling principles. Right? The first nation to adopt the teachings of Jesus as their ruling, governing principles. That's the first Christian nation. And so
This
Christian
came after
nationalism.
that. This came after that extreme genocide of all these people, correct?
This was 301 AD. The genocide was just 100 years ago, right? We're talking
Oh,
1700
okay. I'm
years
trying
ago.
to get time. So, what do you think? This was the deciding factor of this ideology for them to understand that this was a good way of life. What do you think was, what made them make that decision? Do you think?
A
'Cause there
couple
were
of
so many
things.
directions they could have went.
Couple of things. One is that that Armenia, backing up even further, Jesus said, "Go make disciples of all nations," right? And that's after the resurrection. He says, "Go make disciples of all nations." Last thing he says, and then he ascends. And so all of those disciples, especially after the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, all those disciples were split and heading out in different directions. Two of those disciples, Thaddeus and Bartholomew, went up in the direction of Armenia, which is right here behind me, right there. So from Israel down here, they went up this way into Armenia and preached, and that was in the first century. And the message that they preached spread and spread, so that by a couple of generations later, it had become kind of the major faction, or a very significant faction within the culture. And then the king, this wicked king who is sleeping with his brother's wife or something. There's some kind of as kings do. Right. Well, there was a priest, a Christian priest named Gregory, who was associated with the king. He was at that level where he could talk to the king, and he called out the king, kind of like John the Baptist. It's kind of a John the Baptist kind of story, where he called out the king for his sin. And that king was having none of it, and threw Gregory into prison, into solitary confinement. And so while he was in solitary confinement, some say he was there for 15 years in this deep pit. It's called Khor Virap. It's a mile from the foot of Mount Ararat. I've been there. I've been into the pit where Gregory was for however long it was. And it turns out there was like a convent somewhere nearby, and they found out where Gregory was, and they would lower him food every day. So he was kept alive by these nuns. And so then the king fell ill. And it's described in Armenian history similar to Nebuchadnezzar. Like, he turns into a wild beast, right?
Oh, wow.
He falls ill, and his advisor.
That's called the chlamydia nowadays.
So he 13, right? So Coconuts Love You Are is mentioning. So I've heard 15 years, I've heard 13 years, I've heard less than that. So that's how long he was in solitary confinement. And so the king falls ill, and his advisors try everything. And one of his advisors, and I think it might have been his wife or someone who had become a Christian, said, that Gregory guy, he used to pray for people and heal them. He's still alive, by the way. And I think the king didn't know he was being kept alive. And so the last resort, the king is sick, last resort. All right, bring him up. And Gregory prays for the king, and the king is healed. And in that moment, the king decides, oh, this is true. This is real. We're all going to follow the teachings of Gregory. And Gregory became known as Gregory the Illuminator, or Gregory the Enlightener. He is a saint. He's been sainted in the Catholic Church. He's certainly the patron saint of the Armenian Apostolic Church. Gregory the Illuminator. That was the first nation to convert en masse, because of this miraculous event, to Christianity. And less than 20 years later, the Roman Empire declares, we're all Christians. And so Armenia kind of triggered this event, as Jesus said, make disciples of all nations, the nations, with Armenia. I consider Armenia the first fulfillment of the Great Commission and the first instance of Christian nationalism, to declare that I, in my ethnic group, my national population, we are Christian, right? Not even we are German, or we are Caucasian, or we are, African American. It's like we are Christian as our primary.
We don't identify by skin color. We identify with our inner self, our
some higher affinity, right?
Where we originate from, who made us, our creator.
That transcends all of those differences. And so when people today, the buzzword that Christian nationalism is this evil movement trying to undermine democracy, whatever, it's like, that's nonsense, because every nation is going to have allegiance to something or someone, some deity. Every nation, right? So would you rather be a Christian nation or a pagan nation? Right? Would you rather be right? So it's not that Christian nationalism is this bizarre thing. It's what kind of nationalism do we want? Do we want Christian principles ruling and governing us? Right? Not authoritarian, not top down, but bottom up. That's what Christian nationalism.
A quick. I'm going to try to bring what you're talking about right now to a present time. People have kind of gotten away from Christianity through their own free will because they haven't really suffered any consequences. The king that you talked about was suffering a consequence of death. His life was going to end if he didn't, move in a different direction, which was, let's talk to this guy. Let's see if he can heal me. And he found out this guy was Christian. Let's move in that, because I was about to lose something significant. And we're at a point in time right now when it comes to how people's, ideology of living a pagan lifestyle hasn't affected them really all that much. And we have free will. And so we're allowed to do whatever. It's a good thing to go in a Christian direction, but, and what I'm getting at is, I think Christianity it is coming alive. It will come alive even more as we start to see the consequences of living the pagan lifestyle, much like the king was, messing around with people's wives. That's why I made the joke about chlamydia, because he was, maybe this sickness could have been related to some of his pagan lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then he's seen that, what was happening here could, through self-reflection, this guy here, putting the healing touch on him, brought those two things together and said, and I'm sure that maybe if you look back in history, the king led a little bit better lifestyle. He didn't go right back to messing around with people's wives. He started doing a little bit better for himself and reflected that ideology amongst his people. And then when they started, they were probably suffering the consequences as well as living a pagan lifestyle, because the king did it. There was no morals. And once they seen how everything started to flourish and how much happier people were on an organic matter, not engineered, they went that direction. And so, and so that's, and I want to also associate one other thing. I'll try to make it quick. If you think about the difference between the definition of Christian nationalism right now is forcing an idea. Oh, you're just wanting to force your Christianity and say that, what we do is wrong. And well, it is. We're not forcing you on it. But if you look at some of the ways that they're moving in politics to gear people to go towards a pagan lifestyle, because you're going to face consequences of insignificance in the real world. Like like, say, for instance, we'll take away your right to be on your Facebook if you don't, or your algorithm's going to make your Facebook and your YouTube channel putter down because you're not promoting a pagan lifestyle. And then our vanity makes us think that this is the most important thing. So we'll do gay makeup tutorials to try to, make money on YouTube instead of actually promoting the word of Christianity, which in a way makes those people the nationalists. Those are the ones that are sort of forcing their religion on people, even though what they're doing, what they're making.
Secularism is a religion. Yes.
Yeah, it really is when you think about it. Even though they say we don't pray to a god, well, then every time you turn around, they've got this weird looking Baphomet thing, which is a satanic emblem, which means that you are, if you're going to be no religion at all, then you just go around and do numbers all day long. You don't even worry about a Satan thing or anything like that. But you see the direction that, especially in the entertainment industry, and what they're, and glorifying that lifestyle. Eventually, the people, and God even says it. I'm not going to do like the Reverend guy does when he talks about putting the cancer into such and such a people. But what it is you notice that the rate of diseases when it comes to people catching diseases when they're fraternizing with everybody. He said this will be a thing when you start living this lifestyle. You're going to notice a huge uptick in all this bad stuff that comes because of that. And and then on top of that, the depression, mental illness that comes along with not having anything really that significant, you're thinking that this is your only one shot. This is it, guys. This is our it. you come down on yourself so hard and you try to live everything in this one moment that you become mentally ill. And then your supposed one shot, it's nothing. It sucks because now you're just trying to figure out how to live this one shot. You don't think that there's life after this. And their consequences will arise. And eventually, that's where Christianity will come back into play. It always does. We've seen it happen. Am I somewhere in the...
Absolutely. So we tend to think of the world broken into nations, but there are larger groups, and Christianity expands into every nation, right? The Christianity, even though it's not every denomination, it seems divided, but there is something we are united behind. 2.4 billion people on the planet are united behind the fact that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, right, and never died again, right? And that's this mind-boggling reality. It's like, wait, there's one human that has come to this world at some point in the past that is still alive, that he died and resurrected. That person must be God. Right. And the evidence of textual criticism, right? Sorry, Robin. Yes, we're here. You're going to have to go back and listen. But I want to make sure I emphasize this one point. Historically, every nation whose leaders are Christian, right? Every nation whose leadership is dedicated to the principles of Christ. What is that? Love one another, turn the other cheek, right? Justice, obviously, as well. But every nation who's had Christian leadership has prospered. And when those nations depart from that leadership, they decline. And let me tell you, Armenia is the perfect example. The reason that we referenced before, there was a massacre. The Christian Holocaust of World War I was 1.5 million Armenians who were massacred. And why were they massacred? Envy. One of the reasons is because Armenians within the Ottoman Empire were the most prosperous, right? They were the first Christian nation. They believed that the churches were their the most important place in the culture, and they began to thrive. They were artists, just they were the most influential people. And the other ethnic population that was in charge in that time was the Turks. They were having none of it. It was, let's eliminate them and take all their stuff, and then we won't have that problem anymore, that they're better than us, right? And so as Christians, we have to be ready for opposition.
So you bring up a great point. With Christianity comes love. And I'm going to break this down to the whole thing about the race wars that the establishment is trying to invoke on people. The only way they can pull that off is if people hold a grudge. And I remember listening to non-white people who were Christians when they were trying to stoke this race war back in the 80s on like news broadcasts and stuff. What do you think about this? And it says, well, I'm a Christian non-white person, and God tells me to forgive all sins, forgive these people and love these people. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to play into that. And they couldn't. For the longest time, they had to wait for that generation of true Christian non-white people. And and white people too, but I'm just giving an example how they're actually playing off of non-white people, because I'm trying not to use trigger words. You see how angry they are towards the white race, because they don't have Christian beliefs in their heart for forgiveness. So what they can do is say, guess what these white people did to you and your family? They go, yeah, we're angry. We're just going to be angry because this happened. And only thing that's going to do is create more hatred. And that hatred turns into a society that doesn't function, because you haven't said to yourself, well, yes, that happened, but we're here now. And these people, I forgive all that because I'm a Christian and I know to love We're going to love, and these people, you know, and whoever wants to feel that way, I have love for those people too, and forgiveness. But right, you know, that if Christianity was in those people's hearts instead of the hatred that they've been taught through social media, don't believe in God, you know, then they're going to play into that whole race war thing where people actually, you know, you can actually get people angry for something that happened a long time ago that they had no part of.
Yeah.
But their anger stems from that non-forgiveness, because, you know, just think about the preacher that got stabbed on the, you know, when he was giving a sermon over there in the Netherlands, or wherever that was. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly where.
Australia, New Zealand, somewhere there.
Yeah. And so, you know, he immediately, after it gets patched up enough, he says, "I forgive my attacker," and wants him to come to my sermon. And when you do that right there, you put a stop to anything that manifests after that because of the forgiveness. And see, this is where
you're breaking curses. You're breaking curses by forgiving, right?
Exactly. And so that's
we're over time, William.
Oh yeah, we're over time. Yeah, man, we did.
I hate to cut you off. I like listening to you, but
well,
our time goes so quickly. Our
Yeah.
time goes so quickly. I love you, brother.
All right, would love to. Thank you all the people in the comment. Stephanie Kerr, thank you. She's on Twitter too, by the way. Check out Stephanie Kerr on the Twitters. Robin, I don't know if she's on Twitter, but you can give it a look. I don't know, but anyways, yeah, you're on Twitter too, aren't you? Do you do the Twitters?
We have a This Way Network on Twitter. Yeah.
We have a This Way Network. Okay. All right. Well, you got to get back to work. I got to get back to work. A bunch of stuff going on, and I would love to do this again sometime soon. So thank you very much, Michael. You're a wonderful, awesome soul, and you're beautiful on the inside and out.
I love you, brother. I will see you again. Thanks, William. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.